This was really interesting talk and study. Shanda, Nama, and Chelsea. It was so interesting to see how you and your students are incorporating AI. And I have been using AI from its inception. It was a very useful tool, I felt. I teach general chemistry at University of Cincinnati Blue Ash. Let me formally introduce myself. I'm Smita Jadhav, and I'm an assistant professor at University of Cincinnati. And I teach the first two chemistry sequence for pre-med and pre-engineering students. And like Chelsea, you mentioned sex ed, students are going to use this. They just probably don't want you to know, or you just sometimes are not aware of it. But the sooner we embrace the technology and teach them how to use it responsibly is important. And here I'm going to show you, there's too much bright light here. So in this presentation, I will talk about how AI is in the hands of students. What I did here is I did a survey for my undergraduate students over 2 semesters. So this was fall 24 and spring 25. And this work explores how these undergraduate students are using generative AI tools, especially ChatGPT, Copilot, and Gemini, and how we as educators can support them in using these tools responsibly and effectively. So throughout this presentation, I'll show you some of the data trends and key insights from surveys and interviews that I conducted with my students. I'll also connect these findings to some teaching practices that promote ethical, reflective, and equitable AI. And to give you a little background, this and rationale, we know that students are using generative AI, and most of my students, they're using ChatGPT, Gemini, and Copilot. So this project really started with the curiosity, how are students actually using AI day to day? And what benefits or barriers do they experience? And more importantly, how we as faculty can adapt our teaching to support these evolving learning behaviors. So the 4 questions in form of themes that you will see in this presentation. First was, how do undergraduates use AI tools in their coursework? And I was specifically interested in STEM subjects, chemistry, biology, physics, and math. And what benefits and challenges do they experience? Third, how do these students interpret ethical and responsible AI use? And fourth, how can faculty support this equitable and effective AI integration in this coursework? And the themes were, AI looked to see the familiarity with AI. Then secondly, use in their courses, how did they use it, whether they did homework with it, whether they used it as a study guide. Then we looked at some reflections, what were their thoughts, and especially in the one-on-one interviews, I was able to decipher these. Then some challenges and concerns that the students have, and what their suggestions were for us as faculty. This is an IRB method, a mixed method. 240 surveys were anonymous, and there were 40 interviews, about roughly 25 minutes each. And these were undergraduate chemistry, biology, and other STEM students here at University of Cincinnati. Now, each theme connects back to one of those questions that I told you earlier as we go through the data, and you'll see how the story unfolds around usage patterns, ethical concerns, and teaching strategies. So the first data set was familiarity with AI tools. So I picked some of these questions based on the anonymous survey, and you can see that nearly everyone has heard of AI, but while the awareness is high, the confidence in using these tools academically seems much lower. And this gap between exposure and meaningful use is where faculty guidance can make a big difference. So here you can see the use of AI is 75%. And just to give you a little context, I use AI in my teaching as well. So my students in my class were familiar with the use of AI. And UC has its own in-house built AI called Bearcat GPT. And I created a RAG model where the students could access, and that way the information that they get was not as vague and, as Chelsea mentioned, crap. But a lot to do with the RAG model is from the material you supply. So I uploaded my textbook, which is an OpenStack book, my notes, my homeworks, my worksheets. So the AI was gathering the information from these sources. So the students and I felt a little confident giving them access to these. So the quote that really was standing out is, I saw others using AI, but I didn't know the right way to use this. And this single comment captures the need for structured, ethical introduction of AI in our classrooms. And the second theme was use of this AI, different tools in the courses that we teach. So in my specific general chemistry course, I used Bearcat GPT, and personally I've used ChatGPT as well as Copilot. And here you can see from the AI use in the courses, it helps them simplify difficult topics. And the concept review got the most points, where the students were able to go back and ask questions. And some of them said they would ask a question, explain stoichiometry to me as if I was an 8th grader. And then the AI will tell them in step-by-step details how to go about solving that particular problem. So here, practice problem generation, as you can see, is also very high. And then some of them also used AI to create study guides. And my students I know did a lot because I taught them how to do that as well. And using AI for reviewing and content generation was very common theme I saw. Some said that chemistry became less daunting, less scary to them because they were able to go back, ask some more basic questions, which probably they felt uncomfortable asking in the class, and felt that the AI complements the instructions when it is scaffolded. So that was another observation. When the questions and the prompts were scaffolded, students were able to understand the concepts better. And it helped me practice exams and test myself. This is more than one student said that, and both in the anonymous survey for the AI as well as in my class survey, this was a quote that I received frequently. Now, the third theme was the ethical concerns, and you can see in the chart about half of the students were unsure what counts as responsible AI use. And while we think the students know what to do, but how to use it in terms of academics, they were unsure. And some of them said that they felt as though they were cheating, they were worried about plagiarism, or simply that the AI may give them wrong answers. So having them go back and question the AI is also, I felt, a good part of critical thinking that we can teach them. And I avoided using AI because I wasn't sure what counted as cheating. So that itself shows us that there is this fear or concern about making mistakes or being accused of misconduct. Now, I will take these answers with a pinch of salt, assuming that they are indeed telling us the truth, although the survey is anonymous, but we'll give them the benefit of doubt. Next was the perceived benefits that the students felt. And in this perceived benefits, you can see that understanding was the highest ranked. 65% felt that the understanding using AI was better, and it gave personalized responses to them. So depending on the student to student questions, some student asked maybe a higher level question based on their chemistry background. Some asked more basic questions building up to the higher concept. So understanding was clearly better. 60% said it accelerated their learning. And I like this quote. It's like having a 24/7 tutor, which sometimes I do as well when I'm trying to get creative or thinking something out of the box questions for the students, or just creating some fun activities for them. I always find myself going back to AI for some suggestions. And so this is how students see AI as a supplement, not a substitute for their learning. And our goal is to guide them to verify, to reflect, and to think critically about AI outputs. Next theme was the behavior changes. And you can see the big jump in practice problems. Before, there was 25%, and after the use of AI, when students felt more comfortable, it was 70%. This was a huge jump. And the visual alone tells us a very powerful story, I think, here. And this shift reflects the growing metacognitive awareness that students are thinking about, and they're thinking how they learn, not just what they learn. And in this pie chart here, you can see that there's about 15% who are not confident at all, 50% who are unsure, and I didn't want to get in trouble, so I barely used it. So I feel that if we teach our students how to use AI as a tool responsibly, they will be less likely to plagiarize or unknowingly do academic misconduct. Then after that, some of the students in their interviews as well as in the comments in the survey suggested that for AI getting more experience, they should have some training examples. So for training examples, like teaching them how to do scaffolding. So we do one exercise in class before we begin this big chapter about stoichiometry, which starts from balancing equation all the way to finding limiting reactant. And it is like an 8 to 10 step problem. So for some students, they can see the big picture, they can right away solve, but majority of the students, they like the scaffolding. And they were able to do this using the AI. So if we are able to provide them with some examples or some sample prompts to get them started, I think that would be useful. Then integrating AI into the assignments. So for example, balancing equations, we did a fun activity using ChatGPT. And it also helps clarifying any policies. So this is my next big step, and I'm not there yet, is to create a chatbot for my course. So when they keep asking the same repetitive questions, maybe the AI can answer them more efficiently than me. So if professors showed us how to use it properly, we'll all feel more confident, and I will agree with that. And it has been my experience that students do feel better and confident about the use of AI. So I'd rather we guide them instead of them trying to figure it out on their own and maybe get in trouble. Some of the pedagogical implications. So this is where I transition from data to application. To summarize the findings and talk about shifting from restriction to structure, instead of banning AI, show the students how to use it ethically. Model good prompting in class, teach fact-checking, AI does make a mistake, and embed small reflective exercises after an AI-assisted task. So make them probably balance a set of equations and then go say, do you think all the answers that were generated were correct? And how would you know? So this approach maintains some academic integrity while helping students develop real-world AI literacy. And here's some 5 steps. Define the goal and define the context clearly, and use clear prompts and follow-ups. So maybe one prompt gave a certain response. You should teach them how to use follow-ups. So maybe give more examples, create a multiple choice question, give an answer key, or more practice problems. Encourage them to verify using their notes or the textbook and not blindly accept the AI output, and then reflect on their learning values. And finally here, citing AI, use of AI transparently probably is a better idea instead of them denying the fact that they used AI. And setting clear policies early in this semester. So I have a section in my syllabus about the use of AI. I demonstrate in my class if they were to use an AI, this would be a more ethical use, this would be a better use. And for me, all my assessments are in class. So if they are getting extra help with AI outside of classroom with their work, at the end of the day, they take their assessments in person. So I'm okay with that. And reward reflections over output and discuss ethics and biases openly with the students can be very useful. Going forward, this is the roadmap that I plan to do. Cross-discipline study, I've only used STEM data, students from the STEM disciplines. I plan to take input from social sciences, languages, and see how those students deal with these questions and the use of AI. Then create literacy modules and train fellow faculty or speak to faculty in the department. And I don't know about you guys, in our department, there's probably me and one other person who's comfortable using AI. So definitely this would be useful. Then longitudinal tracking is also important, just over several semesters. When I did the survey for the first time last fall, AI from then to now has changed significantly. So as we go through different AI models and platforms, how does that change? And then of course, co-creation will be very much useful. So to wrap up, I would like to say that students don't need permission to use AI, they need direction. And when we provide structure, transparency, and opportunities to reflect, AI becomes a tool for empowerment and not avoidance. So we teach students not just to use AI, but to question it. And that's where the learning really happens. And thank you very much for your time. And you can reach me. Oops, here I am, the last slide.